everybody, it's me, Nate, aka Double Dog, and I'm back. This time I'm doing a mega review. I'm doing a review on Outlast Trinity. That's what I'm going to be doing it in 3 parts. I'm going to start it off with my review of Outlast. Now, overall, Outlast Trinity was developed by Red Barrels and published by Warner Brothers, and was released on April 25th, 2017 for Microsoft Windows, the PlayStation 4, and the Xbox One. You can actually pick this up in a physical copy version or a digital download version, and it's only $39.99 for this. It does include the first game, the download, the Whistleblower, and also the second one. But let's go ahead and get into the very first game, Outlast. The basic story of this game is it takes place in a Mount Massive Asylum located deep in the woods of Lake County, Colorado, that was recently reopened by the Murkoff Corporation, and you play as Miles Upshur, an independent journalist who breaks into the facility after getting a tip about the asylum's shady practices. And as you investigate the dilapidated psychiatric hospital, you are attacked by homicidal patients, and you end up running for your life while trying to find out the true nature of the experiments going on in this facility. Only after your harrowing 6-hour ordeal do you get to the tragic conclusion. Now, overall gameplay of this is you play the game in a first-person perspective, and the overall structure of the game focuses on stealth mechanics. Your character can walk, run, crouch, jump, and climb over certain objects, but cannot attack. So you must remember you have to hide from anything that you find along the way, including lockers, under beds, behind the crates, barrels, just about anything. And if you get spotted by an enemy, you can try to run from enemies, and if you get far enough away, you can pretty much hide from them. Now, since the hospital is mostly unlit, you must use your camcorder's night vision to be able to see. Now, the only problem with that is it causes the batteries to deplete very rapidly. So you have to be scavenging throughout your quest, trying to find batteries to replace them. Now, this game focuses heavily on jump scares and heavy use of sound cues, and the enemies can hear you for the most part, which is not that bad at all. Now, while using the camcorder, if you record certain events in the game, it will add insightful details to the overall story. And of course, with this also brings, since it is a survival horror game, as you go through it, the hospital, you can collect notes and documents to help fill in the overall story. Now, the overall controls are set up as follows. Your left stick controls the movement of your character. The right stick controls your camera. The square button is the action button, which allows you to pick up items, also hide. There will be an on-screen prompt every time, too, that basically tells you what to do. Triangle is to change the batteries in your camcorder. The circle button allows you to stand or crouch. The X button is your jump button. The L1 button you hold down to be able to run. The L2 button, if you're up against a wall or something, you can press that to lean out and peek around corners to see if there's enemies there. The R1 button is what you use to activate your camera, and when you're in camera mode, pressing down the R3 button activates the night vision. Now, the plus pad is used in different ways as well. When you're in camera mode, pressing up or down will actually allow you to zoom in or out with your camera, and left or right will allow you to actually look at documents and stuff when you press your plus pad to go and view them. Now, this game did get positive reviews, and it ended up selling over 4 million copies as of October 19th of 2016. Now, one thing I'll have to say, though, is despite great gameplay, it seems to focus on an overabundance and unnecessary gore. Now, I don't mind gore. I love good gory games, but this one is overused significantly to a point to where it burns you out. Now, you got to pace things in a certain way, and if you throw an overabundance of something, and anyone, after a while, they get burnt out on it, and it makes it to where it doesn't have the same effect. Now, the other big problem I have with is the battery finding. Not necessarily the fact you have to search around and find batteries to keep your camcorder to where you can use the night vision, but the batteries you find are in really stupid-ass odd locations. I mean, you'll find them in some really weird spots, like underneath floorboards and shit like that. Now, I can understand batteries being like on a shelf, maybe even a bathroom on the floor, but underneath fucking wood and right on the floor, that's just really stupid. Now, the other major downfall with this game is the AI is rather dumb. Now, what I mean by that is it is very serviceable in its aspect, but the way the AI is set up, that the enemies, you can exploit this game very easily by the following. If an enemy finds you, all you have to do is run and hide. Now, once you actually hide somewhere, the enemy will come in and it'll look through all, like, underneath the bed and other cabinets cabinets, and lockers and stuff like that, but will never search the one that you're in. So after a while, and you realize this, it takes away from that fear factor of, oh shit, is he going to open up the locker I'm in and find me and kill me? No, as long as you are able to hide before they see you, they'll come in, they'll pretty much look around the area and they'll leave. So that kind of actually makes it to where it loses a lot of the pact. Now, the enemy AI doesn't seem to variate in the enemies either. They all seem to have the basic, if they spot you, run, try to kill you, and you have to run from them. And the other thing that this game kind of suffers from severely is I think it has an overabundance of checkpoints. And while I don't have a problem with a game that gives you a lot of checkpoints, this one gives you like a checkpoint every 2 minutes. So there's certain parts in this game where it's actually better off, since there's no punishment for dying, is what you do is if you get to a certain point where there's a checkpoint and there's an enemy following you, it's best to let the enemy kill you, because then you'll respawn back right where you were at that checkpoint and the enemy won't be there and you won't have to deal with it. You won't have to end up wasting batteries running from them or anything like that. Now, if you can get past those aspects of the game and actually play through this game, it's rather short. Like I said, it's only about 6 hours long, but for what it's worth, this actually does have a lot of good jump scares. It overall is a great game, especially if you love survival horror. And if you haven't had a chance to play this game, or if you want to actually play it again, I can highly recommend it. Oh, scary. All right, that was my review of Outlast. Now it's time for the Whistleblower. Now, as for the Whistleblower DLC, it is considered overlapping DLC that serves as a prequel and somewhat of a sequel to the original game. They actually call it the second game, but it's just way too damn short to actually be a second game. The original release of this DLC for PC and PlayStation 4 was on May 6th, 2014, and the Xbox One had their copy released on June 18th of 2014. Now, the overall plot of this is you play as Wayland Park, an employee of the Murkoff Corporation, who is the anonymous tipster who sent the email to Miles in the first place, which led to him going to the asylum in the first game. Now, as he's doing this, the powers that be and the people he worked for find out that he sends this email, and they decide to punish him by putting him through all the stupid stuff which led to all of the people going insane in the first game. Now, overall, it's pretty much nothing more the same, but more of the first game. It doesn't have any sort of derivative difference to it. In fact, it's downright damn near very similar. I mean, your main character doesn't talk, he makes the same noises, and instead of a certain main character that attacks you in the first game, this one's main focus is on this dude with this grinder blade saw thing that follows you through the whole game trying to kill you. It seems to have a lot less jump scares in the than the original, but it does have a lot more gore. Now, there are a couple times in the first game that you get to go outside. Now, this one seems like you never get to go outside at all, and like I said, it's only roughly about anywhere from 2 to 4 hours long, and you can run through it in about maybe an hour and a half. And overall, it does seem to have some issues. First of all, the AI is exactly the same as the first version. Now, if you turn it up on the most, I think it's insane difficulty, then you get a pretty damn decent challenge. But it does consist of the same run-of-the-mill thing that the first game did, was figure out where to go, find out where the enemy is, get him to go into a room where you're hiding, hide somewhere, run past him, run to the next area, get to the area where the enemy can no longer find you or get to you, rinse and repeat. So it is pretty much structurally built the same way as the first one. No real additions, no new stuff, with slightly less graphics. The graphics seem to be slightly worse than the original, and also I have had a couple glitches with this, considering that it did come on a box set where the first disc contains the first Outlast and the DLC, and the second disc has the second game on it, or as I call it, Outlast 2. All in all, this was a fun addition to it, and if you actually love the first Outlast, I do recommend playing through this as well, just so you can get more backstory to actually what the hell is going on. It does help fill in a lot of stuff with the story, and it does have some nice aspects to it. But let's get to the meat and the potatoes, the big boss of this review. Let's go ahead and get to the main show on the road, the newest of the new, the best of the best. Let's get on to the main game, Outlast 2. Alright, let's get down to Outlast 2. Pretty much the basic plot of this game is you play as journalist Blake Langerman and his wife Lynn as they're investigating a murder of a pregnant woman in the Sandrin Desert in Arizona. They get separated after their helicopter crashes, and Blake's quest is to basically find his wife while searching a village populated by religious cults that believe that it's the end of the world and that his wife has the Antichrist in him. Now, the basic controls of this game are fundamentally the same as the original, except for a certain couple things they have changed. First of all, now to run, you have to press the analog stick, the left analog stick down to run. But you do have a stamina bar now, so you can't run indefinitely. But I have noticed this guy is like a Olympic track runner or something, because he can run super friggin' fast. Now, of course, since you are actually a journalist in this, you have a much better camera than what you had to deal with in the first game. This one is like a digital camcorder, so it does have some nice new additions to it, including audio detection, which allows you to hear sounds, which makes it supposedly a little bit easier if you want to find out where the bad guys are. You can actually bring your camera up, move around and search for their sound and listen in to what they're saying and everything like that. Now, one thing I don't like about it, and it does come into play, but fortunately not that often, is that your main character Blake does wear glasses. So when they fall off, his view distance sucks. That's right. Without his glasses, he can't see. That classic stereotypical bullcrap. Now, this game has overall much larger environments, and most of it takes place in outdoor environments, but still, even though they look larger, they are still pretty much, well, linear. You can go and move around. It's slightly larger in terms of space of movement, but instead of corridors and stuff, you have like areas you can go into, like water in between trees, stuff like that, but it still comes down to fundamentally the same thing. There's still lots of corridors and stuff you got to go through. One neat new ability that they did also have is the fact that since you can hide a lot, they did add a lot of new additional places you can actually hide, including the ability to submerge in water. Now, the only problem is unlike the first game where you could hide and you could still kind of see what was going on, a lot of these places where you hide now, you can't see a damn thing. So you basically, it requires you to use your camera in order to actually tell what's going on based on the sound. Now, like I said, the levels seem to be open, but there's only literally one way to go through each part of the level. So it's pretty much, even though it's a large area, you find the enemies, and what you want to do is you want to pretty much search around until you find the one area that leads you to the next zone. It's a carbon copy, cut and paste, by the numbers, similar to the first game in terms of you get to an area, you have enemies attack you, you run, you gather items, you collect stuff, and you find the one area to get through to the next area, and once you do, generally the enemies back off. Now, I have found one major downfall in this particular version of the game. While some of the other ones, since they were corridors and stuff that kind of forced you to actually have to hide, in this one it seems a lot less needed. Really, all you have to do is just run from the enemies. In most cases, I've found just by making sure your stamina is high enough, you just run from the damn enemies, and it's pretty much a cat and mouse game, and their AI is significantly improved. They did a good job with the improvement, especially if you turn the difficulty all the way up, but even then, they still are on the minds of, okay, if you hide here, they don't look in the place where you're hiding, which I actually have always been a big downfall of it. Maybe they'll release a patch to change that, but so far, I haven't actually found out anything about that. Now, also, you have this ability that when you press your, at least the plus pad on the PlayStation controller, you can go to a screen where you can physically look on your character to tell how many batteries you have. Because I haven't noticed anywhere where it tells you how many batteries you're carrying at a time, but if you look down, you can actually physically see how many batteries you have left. Because yes, this game does bring back the fact that since it's night vision, that you're losing power as you go, and you have to keep collecting batteries. Now, like the Whistleblower DLC, this does a clever way of the batteries kind of makes sense where you find them. There's normally little radios, battery power radios, stuff like that where the batteries are next to, so it actually isn't as bad as the first game, finding like underneath wood and stuff like that. Now, the L and R you use to look around, and it does help a little bit better over the fact that the graphics are significantly improved in this. The graphics are by none flat ass beautiful. It's a very, very nice looking game. But there are some slight flaws with this game that I'm going to get into massive detail with. It's not really variable any different than the first game, and in fact, I find that the open level structure of it being more open actually leads to being a worse game overall, because it still results down to the same thing of finding the next area to get to to get away from the bad guys. And the bad guys aren't as liked in this. While the first game had to do with mental illness and scientific stuff, this one is a lot more religious. And, all in all, I don't really like that aspect. It would come off good if it was from a different game. In this, it just comes off not as good. Now, your main character does talk a lot in this, which I do appreciate because it does build a good, decent amount of character between you and your wife. But your wife is actually pretty damn pathetic. In all due fairness, she was shoehorned in. I did not like how they used the wife aspect in this, and it's poor use of gore. Once again, this game suffers from similar to what the first two games were, where it's just massive gore out the ass just to try to make it more shocking to you. And I've noticed the jump scares. Maybe it's the fact that after I played so many of these games, they're just not, they're not scaring me anymore. And I think what the fact is this is based off just overall your fact how you are with games like this. Now, if you're someone who's very easily scared, easily able to be scared by jump scares, this game will scare you. But in all due fairness, I didn't really get any scared. I got more annoyed by the enemies in this than anything else. I actually got quite disappointed with this game as I played through it. In fact, I think this game is rather bad. I know it's kind of sad I'm saying that. I think the first game was better. And while they obviously had a much bigger budget and a much better game engine and graphics and overall a better, well-designed story, even though it's a little bit way too religious and stuff with the Antichrist and stuff, I find it overall not as entertaining, and it's not as, I hate to say this, charming as the first game. I know, the first one actually was dark, more sadistic, more violent, and while this has massive violence, it seems to come off as just schlocky, cartoony type horror. It's not that good. And the fact that they have QTEs in this actually makes it kind of annoying. The only saving grace of this game I particularly like was there are certain parts where you have flashbacks where Blake goes back to his Catholic school, and there's some pretty cool stuff that happens during that. I don't want to get into spoilers, but that part is actually pretty dang cool, and I do really like that. Overall, it's not a bad game. I just find it nowhere near as good as the first. I find it to be a great disappointment, and I think that's the problem with most sequels to games today, is that unless they drastically change something and add something to the overall content, the game fundamentally is just the same damn game. Now, this is my final score of the Outlast Trinity. Now, I'm going to say this, and a lot of people are going to get pissed off, but the first one's good. The DLC was okay. This game right here, the third one, aka Outlast 2, is just flat-ass boring. I did not like it at all. Now, I would say if you are a big fan of this series, it's definitely worth the pickup, especially for the price. If you buy Outlast 2 by itself, they actually want $39.95 for it, but if you can pick it up in the Outlast Trinity version, you get everything for the same price, and I can definitely recommend that. So, my final score of Outlast Trinity is to wait. That's right. Don't buy this game. Wait until they mark it down. If they mark it down, or if you actually find a red box or something where you can rent the Trinity version, or even Outlast 2, go right ahead. But do not buy this game at full price. Just give it a week or two, and I guarantee you the price will drop, and it'll be worth it by then. Because after all, it's definitely worth playing through, despite the fact that it's very cliched. It's really unimaginative. It's not really that creative when it comes to terms to actually the overall way the game is, other than the graphics and the voice acting, which is pretty damn good. The game itself as a series, I thought, was rather disappointing. So this is Nate, aka Devil Dog, and I say I want to thank everyone who subscribes to my channel. I want to thank everybody who watches this video. Please leave a comment below if you actually like this game series. Let me know if you agree with my opinion or if you disagree with my opinion, because after all, that's what makes everything great in this world, is we all have our own friggin' opinions. Now remember, have fun, play hard, and the devil is in the details. Peace.